Samurai Legends, Book 6, End of the Toyotomi. 1586, Strongest Under Heaven. While Hideyoshi and Hidenaga were doing some last-minute drafts before preparing to mobilize their massive armies, two swordsmen in Yamato were competing for the right to participate. Munetoshi Yagyu and Munisai Shinmen were arguably the greatest swordsmen in the land. Their sword skills caught the attention of the last Ashikaga shogun. He demanded a champion to travel to Kyushu in his name, but he couldn't decide who. Munetoshi Yagyu of the Shinkage Ryu and the current Shinigami. He was trained alongside the current Fujin Sakonshima by the sword saint Nobutsuna Kami Izumi. He also killed Yojimbo Oda in combat. The other option was the son of a legend, Hisahide Matsunaga, a man who dedicated his life to the sword. He had won 12 duels in succession to that point. Munisai Shinmen, his style was the same as Yukimura Sanada would embrace. The two-sword style of Kansuke Yamamoto and Yoshitsune Minamoto. Yoshiaki Ashikaga traveled to Tsutsui Castle with Munasai and Sakon to decide which of the two swordsmen would be named greatest under heaven. Munasai respected Munetoshi, as he had fought for his father, Hisahide, in the past. Munetoshi had also served the Ashikaga shogunate. Munasai respected his father more than anyone. He viewed his father as a hero that rid the land of the Hosokawa, Miyoshi, and Ashikaga. He viewed his father as a martyr, a victim of the Demon King. When his father burned at Shigasan Castle, Munasai escaped and dedicated his life to becoming an invincible swordsman. To honor his father, he held Munetoshi in high esteem because of his relationship with Hisahide. However, Munetoshi was the man to beat. Munasai entered the arena and greeted Munetoshi. He then introduced him and stated that his swords were genuine Muramasa and Masamune blades. Munetoshi acknowledged him and drew the Shinigami. Its edge instantly killed any it cut. The sword was nearly weightless and could cut through most things. Its kashira looked like a human skull. Each makugi was capped with a small skull. The tsuba resembled a manji, with a sword breaker facing up and down. Even a genuine Muramasa and Masamune blade would easily be destroyed by such a powerful sword. But Munasai was unfazed, as he assumed his dueling stance. Munetoshi appreciated his bravery and confidence and assumed his Shinkage Ryu stance. Munasai moved gracefully and carefully, not allowing his blades or his body to touch the edge of the Shinigami. Eventually, Munetoshi saw an opening, a straight vertical slash down to cut through both swords, and cut down Munasai. But when he brought Shinigami down, the blade was successfully blocked by the two swords Munasai wielded. Munasai took a page from his father's book and used the confusion to capitalize. He slid his blades forward into Munetoshi's shoulders. Then with a kick, Munetoshi was disarmed and on the ground. Munasai could have finished his opponent, but instead bowed to the aged swordsman. "You certainly are Hisahide's son," Munetoshi then surrendered the Shinigami to Munasai. Munetoshi asked, "Why didn't Shinigami cut your blades?" "Shinigami has cut many Muramasa and Masamune blades in the past." Munasai laughed and said, "These are genuine Muramasa and Masamune. I found them while training on the mountain. They were not human students of Resai Ban. They were, in fact, immortal Onika. The legends were fabricated to protect them from VT. They remained in those mountains for thousands of years, crafting swords and occasionally giving them to worthy swordsmen across the land. They also trained to become the greatest swordsmen of all time. Thousands of years of crafting, gifting, and training in swords. When I discovered them, I had won 10 duels. They argued over who would give me a blade. I told them I'd take one from each of them if I could duel them. They jumped at the opportunity and charged me from both sides. I simply dodged out of the way, and they impaled each other. I then proceeded to decapitate both. Being there, Onika, their heads grew back, but it was apparent I had won. They looked at each other in disbelief. Masamune, we are the last. Indeed, Muramasa. We have trained so long, and still lost to a human, in a single sword stroke. Perhaps it is time to leave this realm to humanity and rejoin our kind. Munasai continued. They sealed themselves into the blades on the condition that I dedicate my life to the sword. My mission is to become an invincible swordsman. Munetoshi Yagyu would become a hermit and focus on the betterment of Shinkage Ryu and the training of his sons. Muneyori Yagyu, his fifth son, would definitely benefit from this intense training. Yoshiaki Ashikaga was no longer the shogun, but he still declared Munasai Shinmen was the greatest under heaven. Munasai was then sent with Sakon to represent Yoshiaki in Kyushu.